All right, so good evening. We are studying the book of Shmuel, the second book, Shmuel Bet, chapter 7, verse 13, 12, 13. We're in the midst of a very eternal set of verses, God's eternal promise to David that he's going to be our king forever and ever, and the house of David is going to be the kings for eternity. And it all came about when David asked to build the Bet HaMikdash. He felt that it's time, that the conditions are right, that all of the Jewish people are under him in terms of ruling them. We are in our land, and there was peace for a while. So he thought that it's time. Turns out it's not time yet, and he's not the person, which is, we're going to talk a whole bunch about that today. So David was asking the Navi. Navi is Natan, and he asked him if he should do it, and Natan and Navi told him, "Yeah, you should. It's legitimate. It's time." But he said it from his own ideas. And that night, God revealed himself to the prophet Natan and told him, "You better wake up and run, tell David, no, it's not time for you." And last time we were discussing for a while what was the problem, why is it not time? It seems that all the conditions were met. Turns out the conditions are not all met, and there are various explanations. I'll just briefly sort of put together the explanation of the Abarbanel, who collects from Rashi, and the Ralbag, who collects from a bunch. And the bottom line is that David is not the person to do it because he is not a born king. He was not born to a king. He was born to Ishai. He was a great man, but he was not a king. And his son, Shlomo, who's not born yet, will be born to a king. And he is the person who is going to be, that it's fitting for him it's a king, the son of a king, to create the building for God. Now, so that's the person. The time was also not right because it was temporary peace in the land of Israel, but it was it was temporary. David was not able to see the future, but God knows it. And it wasn't about to be quiet yet. And as we see after the end of the prophecy, there will be a bunch of fierce wars. So it wasn't quite ready yet. And finally, there is also David was a very fierce fighter. And he got everybody to line up, and he didn't, he was ruling very, very wisely, and created a whole system of commerce and all. And it was a fear that people will think that he's building the house in order to improve his own statue, for his honor. So he is the one that built the house of God. There were no basis for it whatsoever, because it's not the person, as we will see, at all. But people don't need any much to start rumors, and it would be very easy for people to start a rumor. Oh, David built it for himself. So what do we do here? So what ended up happening is that David teed it off. He set it all up. he planned it, he designed it, he organized it, and then his son executed it. So when the son executed it, nobody can say that the son Shlomo did it for himself. It was done by his father. But if David HaMelech would have done it, it will be easier for people to talk and not be nice about it. So for all those reasons, David was not the person to do it at the moment. But as instead, God is telling him, Kimleu yamecha, when you're going to pass away, v'shachavta et avotecha, when you're going to die, v'akimoti zaracha acharecha, I'm going to shore up, I'm going to rise up your offspring that will come after you, asher yetzeh mimecha, that will be born, it's not born, wasn't born yet, somebody who will be born, and we will see, it will take several more years for that someone to be born. And I'm going to set up, and I'm going to establish, and I'm going to organize his kingship, his kingdom, and he is the one who yivneh bayit lishmi, v'konanti et kiseh mamlachto ad olam. He is going to be the one to build the house for me, and I'm going to set up his chair, his seat, his throne forever. Now, Vekonanti it's translated here established, but it's really get it ready, because we all know that who is the king of the Jews right now? No one. Who was the king of the Jews in the past 2,000 years? No one. So where is the King David? The point is that God have the throne ready for the offspring of David, when they are ready to accept it, when they do the right thing. But it's never going to be given to someone else. So it's guarded, it's saved. When a son or someone from the house of David is going to be ready to take over, it's going to happen. And we saw indeed in the years to come that there were all kinds of difficulties, all kinds of people, all kinds of kids and grandchildren, great-grandchildren that were not exactly, King David material. They were way less than what expected. Now, I wanted to take a little bit of a diversion for a second, and to talk about something that really should trouble all of us. When we say that David is not going to do it, and the Shlomo is going to build the house, and we have a continuation of several, another dozen of verses to discuss that point. But when we daven Shachis, every day when we daven Shachis, the very first thing you say, right, after during the Kadeshim, the first Kadeshim, we say Mizmor Shir Chanukat Habayit LeDavid. It's the song for the dedication of the house for David. Hello? It's not David, it should be Shlomo, right? Maybe he authored the song, but he wasn't there for the dedication, and we know that the house is called after him. Even though he was not the one who actually built it, it's really called the house of David. It's called after him. And every morning before davening, we make sure to say it. The very first verse means Mizmor Shir Chanukat Habayit LeDavid. It's the song for the dedication of the house of David. So what's up? What's going on here? So I saw something very fantastic this week, and I bumped into it literally, and I thought I'll share it because it's really, really nice, and it hit the spot. So we all know, as observant Jews, that there are really two universes or two themes or two tracks. There is the physical world, which we all see and live within, and there is a spiritual world, and they go hand in hand, and they influence each other, and they have some duality where things that exist in one world exist in the other. We say that God, when he created the world, he used blueprints, and the blueprints were the Torah. So he looked in the Torah and he created the world. So everything that exists in the world is in the blueprint, you can't deviate from the blueprint. So in the world, we know that there are things that a human being, that a person, that a man needs, okay? And they're divided to three general classifications of what we need. A person needs nourishment, food, right? In order to grow, to sustain ourselves. We need clothing in order to protect ourselves, our body. And we need a home, a shelter, a place to be. Even though we have the protection of clothing, it's not enough. We need protection to the protection, right? It's not enough for someone in this weather like today just to have clothing, as good a clothing as it is. We can't stay long outside. We need a house. Now, we all understand those things and we know them, but let's just see what is the parallel in spirituality, in Torah life. What is the parallel? What parallels those three needs? So, food, mazon, right, is something that we ingest. We bring it inside. It lasts a short period of time, relatively. You need to eat, 2-3 times a day. And it's very, very much measured for what we need. Each one of us has different number and types of calories and carbs and whatever, and we all have our own habits and our likes and dislikes, and it's very much measured. So we put it in, and it's very measured for ourselves. There are no two people who eat exactly the same. No, even when you buy fast food and they all look the same, they not all order the same, So the food is internal, and these are the characteristics of the food. The parallel for the food in the spiritual world is learning Torah. Learning Torah, we take it in, we put it in our brain. There are no two brains in the world that are the same, so it's very, very much measured to our understanding. Whatever one person's understand, the other one doesn't, or understands differently. And it doesn't last long, meaning it's not enough for us to go and get our PhD in Masechet X, and that's it, and no more, we're done. We hang it on the wall and we have our PhD. That doesn't work that way. With Torah, you have to learn morning and evening, twice a day, like a meal, right? We have to put in more every time in order to sustain ourselves. That's Torah. Clothing are on the outside. They also measure to our body, right? You can't wear something which is 3 sizes bigger than what what you need, because you're going to trip, and you can get into something which is 3 sizes smaller than what you need. And they have runs. When you have a meal, each one take what they need exactly, and it's different. But when you buy clothing, they all there are runs of clothing that a lot of them are the same. And it's measured to the person, and we need it. We need it in the summer, in the winter. We need it right outside of ourselves, but it's not. We don't ingest it. And the equivalent for that in spirituality, in Torah world, is mitzvot. Is the doing of the performing the mitzvot. They are called our levushim. They're called our clothing, because this is what we wear. This is what our soul wears. All of the mitzvot that we do during the day. We daven, we give tzedakah, we say broche, we're nice to people, we conduct our business, in an amicable and Torah way. So those are all pieces of cloth that we're wearing. They last longer, and they are measured more or less to our needs, but they are, runs. So, when we light candles, a lot of us light the same type of candle. When we put on tefillin, a lot of us can put this, the same type of tefillin. Now, what is a house? What is a shelter? A shelter is something that we need in order to protect the mitzvot, in order to protect the levushim, in order to protect our clothing, right? Just like a person wears the clothing, they need to go into a house. So what is that protects us, that protects our mitzvot, and why do mitzvot need protection? So mitzvot need protection is because we're dealing with the world, and the world has good and bad. It's very easy, we can get off the beaten path. We can do things for the wrong reasons. Someone can give a very nice donation to shul in order for their name to be, advertised. Someone we have ulterior motives, or we do things the wrong way sometimes. So we need protection. We need to do the mitzvahs just right. And the fences that the rabbis put, those are the houses, those are the protection for the mitzvah. In order for the mitzvah to be just so, on Shabbos, you have very little written in the Torah in order to how you keep Shabbos, but you have thousands of different fences that we don't do this, we don't do that, we wash hands this way, and we cook that way, and we warm up the other way. And, all of those fences that the rabbis, it's called Torah Shebe'al Peh, right? It's the oral law. All of the fences that were mentioned in the oral law, this is our protection. This is the house. This is where all the mitzvot are going into. We're going into all those fences in order to protect the way we do the mitzvot. So a house in spirituality is Torah Shebe'al Peh, is the oral law, is the protection. Now, what is the equivalent in the world for this kind of a protection? This is government, right? The king. The laws of the land, right? There are many laws that we have that are there, even though, I have my own family and my own, surrounding. We need laws, otherwise you'll have bandits running up and down the streets and stealing and killing and doing whatever the heck they want. So we need the law of the land, we need government in order to protect. That's the house. And that is where David HaMelech come into play. In order to build the house of all houses, the Bet HaMikdash, we need a king. The king has to set it up just right. And the one that had the power and the ability and actually did set it up just right was David HaMelech. He set up the blueprint for how a Jewish king is supposed to act. Because David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam, he is the king of all kings, he is always going to be. So basically the house of David were established by David in order to do the house for all of us. To build the fence, to build the oral law. He was one of the first ones that actually codify the oral law in such a way that we are until this very day following his rules of engagement. And that's why he merited that the house of God is called after him, because he set up the blueprint how to build a house and how to make sure that everything that we do is all fenced in and correct. So it might be a little bit of a diversion, but this is why every morning when we start davening, we say Mizmor Shir Chanukat Habayit David, where we're praising the dedication of the house of David, because we are about to embark on a daily schedule that includes learning Torah and doing mitzvot, and all of that needs to be under the auspices, under the house of David, under the rules that David HaMelech set up for us. That's why we start with it, and that's why, despite of the fact that he physically didn't actually build it, but he set it all up. He teed it off. He made it all ready to go and wrapped it with a bow. And Shlomo just had to basically, erect it. Anyway, let's move on. Sorry if it was too long of a diversion. Anyway, now as we said that God is promising to David that his son is going to be the one to establish the house, to build the house, and God is going to establish the throne that will be ready for all of the generations to come. Ani ehyeh lo le'av. God is promising that he is going to be a father to Shlomo. Ve'hu yeh li leben, and he's going to be my son. What's the relationship? And we all, have this relationship with God. But here it's an extra one. It's a closer one. Why? Because when a son is not acting right, what does the father do? They punish the son, but they don't throw him out of the house. At least they shouldn't. They don't write him off of the will. At least they shouldn't. A son can be whatever, the mistake they made, but the relationship between a father and a son is the same. That's why when God punished us, what is the worst day of the year? It's Tisha B'Av, right? It's 9 in Av. Av means the father. So it's 9 in father, He's still our father, even despite the fact that we're being reprimanded, we still, we still his sons. Asher ba'avoto, when the son goes off the path, v'ochachtiv b'shevet anashim, and I'm going to chastise him, and I'm going to, give him, a little bit of a patch in the backside. Ubenig'ei bnei adam, and afflictions of mortals. We're not going to get scot-free. Someone who's not doing the right thing is not going to get a free pass. But we never are going to not be the sons. And therefore, when God here is promising that David is going to be, the house of David is going to be forever and ever for eternity, the rulers, our kings, that is taking into account some sons that are, not behaving right. Some of the descendants that will not be behaving right. V'chasdi lo yasur mimenu. And the chesed of God is not going to be removed and not going to be withdrawn from the person, just like it happened with Shaul. Kasher asiroti mi'im Shaul, asher asiroti milfanecha, right? Shaul was just before David, and Shaul messed up, and God withdrew his offer to, or his intention to make Shaul, the house of Saul, the eternal kingship of the Jews. All right. So, but now God is promising it's not going to happen, and it's coming from God's charity, from the Chesed of Hashem, and the Chesed. What is the whole idea of Chesed? Chesed is given to someone that's not necessarily deserve it. If you see someone in the street who is in need, so it doesn't matter if they're a crack addict or they got themselves into the pickle, they lost their money, they gambled it up, whatever it is whatever affliction they brought on themselves, you still do chesed with that person, because even though they don't deserve it, they do deserve it. So this is what Hashem is telling David. My chesed is going to be basically channeled to you, through you, unlike what happened with your predecessor. And then, and you see, it's one after the other, promise after promise after promise after promise. It's incredible. Like David HaMelech is saying, I got an idea, let me build house for Hashem. So, Natan is telling you, no, but, and he sit there and get all these amazing promises, which is, we'll see how David is reacting to it. It's sort of blew his, why me? Thank you, God. But, it's amazing that you're giving it to me. I don't deserve it in my eyes. V'ne'eman betcha u'mamlachtecha ad olam. And this is where he gets the eternal promise that your house is going to be trusted, and it's going to be my trustee to hold that position for eternity. Lefanecha, right? Kisacha yeh nachon ad olam, and your throne is going to be established, going to be ready. Nachon means ready. It's not going to be existing for eternity, because we know that it stopped. But it's ready. There is no one else who's going to sit on that throne. The throne is there, is ready for David HaMelech to exercise, to produce someone who is ready to rule, someone who deserves to sit on this chair. Okay? Now, there might be other people in amongst us who deserve to sit on the chair, but they ain't going to get it unless it's someone from the house of David. That's why the Rambam and all of the, we all know that Mashiach is the ultimate ruler of the world, and of us is going to come from the house of David. And it's all coming not only to strengthen David, but also to strengthen all of us, the Jewish people, to know that it's coming, and to know that God promised, and when God promises, He always fulfills. And even though we didn't see it, I'm X number of years old and I didn't see it, so wait, that's God promised and God will fulfill. And the fact that He promises so much just gives us the hint. It gave David the understanding that there will be difficulty on the way, and the road is not going to be smooth. It's not going to be free sailing, So that's what he says, Natan. ככל הדברים האלה וככל החיזיון הזה, כן דיבר נתן אל דוד. Natan spoke to David in accordance with those words and with his prophecy. Okay, chizayon is prophecy. It's also a vision. Now, why is the double word? What is those words and the chizayon? Chizayon is if you've been to Yerushalayim, they sometimes have in Metzudat David, they have this on the wall of the old city. You have videos and sound being projected on the walls. Have you seen that? Right? Sound and light show. Yeah, sound and light show. Right? Sound and light show, and it's tremendous and it's beautiful. But then 11 o'clock comes and it turns off and it's gone. It's called in Hebrew. It's called chizayon or koli. Sound and light show is called chizayon. It's like you see, it's a phantom, but it's not. It's there, but it's not there. So what he's telling him, there will be time that there will be phantom. There will be time that it will look like just light and sound and light show. And then, but the truth is that those are words of God, and they're always going to be there. Now, I want to go down another rabbit hole for a second, because it's interesting, and it was something I saw also this week. If we count our prophets, we had 48 male prophets, and if you look at the list, one of the main ones is David. David HaMelech was a prophet. Okay. So the obvious question is, why did they need Natan to give them the prophecy in the name of God? Why can't he just get it direct? It's very simple. Why do you need a messenger? So the answer for it is in a very interesting book. It's the Rambam. We all know the Rambam. The Rambam, when he was 23 years of age, go back, close your eyes, go back to the time that you were 23 years of age. Think what you did. What did you contribute to the world? Well, the Rambam, when he was 23 years of age, he started writing the Pirush HaMishnayot, the explanation for the Mishnayos. He had a commentary on the Mishnayos. Tremendous work. Took him 10 years. He wrote that it took him 10 years to write it. And he wrote a very, very long introduction, an intro. It's always printed before Seder Zraim, in the beginning of the Mishnah, right? And over there, it's very long, even when it's printed in small letters, it's 20, 30, 40 pages, very long. And over there, the Rambam is going through a lot of history and a lot of just like a lot of our history is coming from the Rambam, a lot of our knowledge of our history and the details is coming from the Rambam. One of the things that he is writing is the whole explanation and understanding of what prophecy is. Because we have to know, to understand what the difference between prophecy and halacha, whatever, it's a long story, just a detail. So what is the whole idea of prophecy? So he's explaining that there are good prophecies and bad prophecies, and the good prophecies are always happening, and the bad prophecies not always happen. Why? Because someone, if God is, we learned Yonah not long ago, right? The book of Yonah, when God is giving a prophecy, if it's a bad one, He's giving a way out. If you do tshuva, if you repent, I'm going to change my mind. But the good one, God never changes His mind. Now, there is a very, very fundamental way of testing to know who is a prophet and who is a phony. You need to know that, right? People can wake up in the morning and write on Facebook that God was revealed Himself to me, and everybody should wear I don't know, something. And you have throughout the years you had a lot of phonies. So how do you know if someone is a phony? You take one of his prophecies and you see if it happens. The prophet has to come and say a prophecy, not something that will happen in 1,000,000 years, or in 1,000 years, or in 2 years. He has to do something. You have to say something that will happen soon, and you can measure and you can see if it happened. You know that this guy is real. If it didn't happen the way he said it, the guy is phony. So this is a fundamental way of judging a prophet. Now, when God spoke to Yaakov was also one of our forefathers, but he was also a prophet. And God spoke to him and promised to him that he's going to go. And he was dreaming when he was sleeping on a stone, and saw the ladder and the angels going up and down, right? And God promised him that he's going to come back. But he was fearful. The whole time he was fearful. Why was he fearful? He was fearful because he knew himself. And he knew that he may be, make a mistake. And if you make a mistake, maybe God is not going to, he's not going to be worthy of doing that. So, from those stories, the Rambam in Pirush HaMishnayos, in the introduction to Pirush HaMishnayos, is telling us something very fundamental. When the prophecy is being told to you, about you, sometimes if you're not doing the right thing, it may not happen to you. It may happen to your children. The words of God are never being wasted. But you can mess it up. Just like we can repent and change the prophecy that was a bad prophecy to good. If a prophecy was told to you individually by God, if you don't deserve it, you decide, you know what? God has told me I'm going to win $1 million. So now I'm not going to put on tefillin and daven. I'm not going to do anything. Who needs? God promised. That doesn't work. You're not going to get it. But when the prophecy was sent to you by a messenger, because this is a way to understand, to know, this is a rule to know who is a prophet and who is not a prophet, that never fails. A prophecy that was sent by a messenger will always, if it's from God, if it's not a phony, right? If it's from God, it's always going to happen. There are no exceptions. The person can afterwards do whatever, but the prophecy will become true because otherwise there is no basis to know what a real prophet and what's not. This is one of the rules. The rule is that you know that someone is a prophet if it happened. So if someone is really a prophet and God told him something, it will happen no matter what. That's why this prophecy was sent to David HaMelech with someone else, even though he had the equipment to talk directly to God. He had the receiver, he had the code, he was able to go to God.com and get it directly. But he didn't. He needed to come through a messenger, so it's for sure going to happen no matter what. And that's the reason God sent this particular prophecy through someone else. Anyway, now, what does David HaMelech, after hearing all of this good that Natan sent to him, so now David HaMelech is responding. And what does he do? So, Vayavo HaMelech David, Vayeshev Lifnei Hashem. So first thing that he does, he's overwhelmed. He goes back to where the ark was, where he wanted to build Beit HaMikdash, right? He wanted a house for the ark, right? That was the whole impetus for this whole story. He says that's how it started. And then he sits there in front of God. He sits. And this is something very, very different, because you're not supposed to sit in the courtyard of Beit HaMikdash. So it wasn't a Beit HaMikdash, it was just a tent, but in the presence of the ark, you're not supposed to sit. There is only one exception. If you are a king from the house of David, then you can sit. That is the only, that's the halacha. The only people who are allowed to sit in the Azara, in the courtyard of Beit HaMikdash, are the kings from the house of David. Okay? And they are sitting there. There is once a year that they sit and they read on Sukkot, whatever. So that's the only time. And this is where it started. So now that, again, there is a very strong relationship between David and the house. So David can sit in the house that you build, that's yours, that, you have a special relationship, you're allowed to sit. So that's what happened here. He sat down. So he sits down, and what does he do? Then he prays. And it's a long prayer. We're not going to finish it today. It's about 10 verses of prayer, but it's awesome. We'll go through it. We'll start it now, and we'll go through it. But he basically is, spilling his heart out and thanking God for all the amazingness, all the goodness that he gave him. Vayomer, he starts, Mi Anochi Hashem Elokim. Who am I? And he's mentioning, he mentions, both names of God, and we'll see, he mentions a third one later. But, Mi Anochi, who am I? Umi Beiti, and who is my house that deserved it? Ki heviutani adalom, that you brought me until here. So there are two things that I wanted to say about this pasuk. Okay, first of all, the word halom, it's if you're in Israel and you're celebrating your bar mitzvah, you're saying thank you for my parents who brought me ad halom, that brought me until here. So in modern Hebrew, halom is here, and this moment, momentous occasion. But the word halom is really, it means malchut, it means kingship, it means kingdom, it means being a melech. So God brought me to be a king, ad halom, to be a king. Now, this word halom is mentioned two more times, at least two more times, in different contexts, in the same context, but with different people. The first one is with Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu that saw the burning bush, and he wanted to get closer, and God told him, "Don't come ad halom, don't come halom, don't get close to here." Now, what happened with Moshe? Moshe Rabbeinu at one point asked God to be the king of the Jews, and God said, "No, this is not for you." So to him he says, "Don't come ad halom. You're not going to be a king." And then the second time it's being mentioned is when Boaz was calling Ruth, the great-grandmother of David HaMelech, right? He called her and asked her to when she was collecting the wheat in his field, and Boaz and his workers were sitting to eat, and he saw her there alone, a poor woman alone. He says, "Kshina ad halom, come ad halom, come here," to signify the fact that she is going to come, and from her the kingdom is going to come. From her, the kingship, David HaMelech is going to come from her. So this is the word halom, that here, this is where halom arrived, So when you have a bar mitzvah in Israel, you feel like a king. So he said, "Thank you for bringing me halom. Thank you very much." But this is the real halom. So that's number one. Another thing that I wanted to mention is David HaMelech is going to suffer throughout his life several times where people challenge his kingdom. Okay? And two times that come to mind. And two different punishments, two different outcomes, and now we know why. The first one that we know is Avshalom, his son, right? Avshalom challenged he wanted to take over to become a king even before David HaMelech passed away. And David HaMelech was resisting it, but he was not, he told his officer, Yoav, not to touch Avshalom, not to kill Avshalom, not dare to hurt him. You know, he loved him very much. And then when Yoav killed him, David HaMelech was very upset and ordered his second son, his other son, Shlomo, to take revenge over Yoav because he killed Avshalom. So Avshalom ended up dying because he did that, but David HaMelech did not want this death to occur. He did not, according to what his understanding of Halacha, Avshalom should not have died. Now there was another gentleman, Shim'i ben Gera. Shim'i ben Gera, at one point, Shim'i ben Gera was from the tribe of Binyamin, and the tribe of Binyamin were, some of them were harboring some resentment to David HaMelech that he took over after Shaul and took over the kingdom from them. So Shim'i ben Gera was cursing David. At that moment, it was not the right time to kill someone on the spot for political reasons, really, for stability reasons. But David HaMelech understood that Shim'i ben Gera is, he has to be punished by death because he challenged the king, and he told his son Shlomo to perform this the service to provide the punishment to Shim'i ben Gera, which Shlomo HaMelech, after the passing of David, did. So the question is, why did Avshalom, who was challenging David, should not have died, and Shim'i ben Gera, who was challenging David, should have, did receive the death penalty? So from here we know why. Because Avshalom was from the house of David. So when someone from the house of David is challenging David, it's his. It's, he did not perform anything against the king, against the promise of God to keep the house of David as our king forever and ever. Shim'i ben Gera, who was from another tribe, from another house, from the tribe of Benjamin, related to the house of Shaul, he is the one that's challenging David. That doesn't work, because the house of David is the one to be ruling and not the house of Shaul. So that's Vatiktan od zot be'enecha Adoni Hashem Elokim, and he says that he's mentioning the fact that he's very small. It seems I seem too little for you to bother with, God. I'm like a little nothing, and what is that you're doing to me so much? ותדבר גם אל בית עבדך למרחוק, and you're promising far away. What is far away? There are two explanations here. Far away, the Radak is saying, is the time of Mashiach, meaning David already understood that at the time of Mashiach he's going to be a king. And Targum Yonatan is saying, what is mean to merachok? In the world to come, meaning when we're Olam Haba, which is the time that we're not in our bodies. Okay, so even there, David HaMelech is king. So David HaMelech is king in this world and in the world to come, and at the time of Mashiach, lemerachok. This is what the promise here is. Vezot Torat Adam Hashem Elokim, and this is the law of the people. What is Torat Adam? What does it mean, the law of the people? Adam, who is Adam? Adam HaRishon, right? Is the first person, right? What is Adam HaRishon? Adam HaRishon was supposed to live for 1,000 years, right? And he was also a prophet, and he saw that David HaMelech is not going to have enough time, so Adam HaRishon gave David HaMelech 70 of his years. And that's why Adam HaRishon lived for 930 years, and David HaMelech lived the 70 years exactly. So David HaMelech was the soul of Adam HaRishon. That's what it says here, Torat Adam. It's the law of Adam. It's from the time immemorial, from the time that the world was created. This whole system was set in place for the soul of Adam, for the soul of David to take it over. One more word, Rabbi, and I'll be out of here. Adam is Rashi Tevot Adam, David, Mashiach. Right? Adam, David, Mashiach. That's the Rashi Tevot of Adam, because Adam started it, and then David continued it, and it will materialize again in the coming of Mashiach, speedily in our time. Thank you very much.